and welcome. I'm Mary Charlotte Grayson, Director of Events for the National Indian Gaming Association. Thank you so much for joining us today for our exciting and informative webcast series, Tribal Gaming and the New Normal, with Victor Rocha and co-host Jason Giles. Today's discussion will focus on a new normal and the promise of 2021. Before we introduce the presenters, I would like to go over some housekeeping items to keep in mind. All audience members are on listen-only mode, which means you are muted. We will be monitoring audience engagement on the dashboard and do encourage you to participate by using the question panel. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this webinar and you will receive an email with a copy of the recording so that you may listen and refer back to it anytime. This webinar, as well as others in our series, will also be made available on our NIGA YouTube channel in the coming week. Without further delay, let me introduce our host, Victor Rocha, Conference Chairman with the National Indian Gaming Association and editor of Pachanga.net, and Jason Giles, our Executive Director. Victor, take it away.
Thank you, Mary Charlotte. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Rocha. I'm the conference chairman. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because we're not doing conferences. I'm the conference chairman of the National Indian Gaming Association. And my co-host is Jason Giles, the executive director of the National Gaming Association, who obviously has a job still. And this is a new normal. Welcome. In today's conversation, we're talking to our special guest, Bill Miller, President and Chief Executive Officer of the American Gaming Association, and Ernest Stevens, Jr., Chairman of the National Gaming Association, our glorious leader and friend. Gentlemen, welcome. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good to see everyone. Good to see everyone. You know, before we start, I was just telling everyone, over the holidays, my wife and I tested positive for COVID-19. We have since gone through the quarantine period and stuff like that. So we went through it it was uneventful, and we were very fortunate. And I think like a lot of people out there, you know, we were very nervous and very careful. And then we came in contact with someone. And so out of an abundance of precaution, we got tested. And it turns out we were positive. And so, you know what? I think that's probably a good way to start our conference, our conversation. But, you know, this, like everyone else, you know, I was really frightened and I was very cautious. And, you know, it could have come in my house. It could have been at Costco. It could have been at Target. You know what I mean? It could have been anywhere. But, you know, again, I feel very fortunate that we didn't have any real symptoms other than minor flu-like symptoms and stuff. So it feels good to be on the other side. Bill, I hope you're staying safe and healthy also.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad to hear that that you all have kind of come through COVID and come on the other side. I think it's one of those things where, you know, we now have literally millions of people in America that have had it. And so, you know, it's hard for me to find people that have had a friend, colleague, relative who's had it. And unfortunately, you know, oftentimes they also hear, you know, a story of someone who had it and got really, really sick or even died. And so, you know, it's good to hear that you're on the other side. And I know that all of us are kind of working our way through, you know, what I kind of think that there's one trend line that hopefully is going down and another trend line that's going up. And, you know, the trend line that's going down will be, you know, as we continue to get people vaccinated and continue to, you know, feel safer. And I think that that's something that we all want to feel.
Well, you know, I mean, during this whole thing, you know, it wasn't, you know, until a couple of days after the election when, you know, the real good news started pouring in. And, you know, it's really been amazing how fast it's been rolling out. I know a lot of people are still complaining about that, but I'm still very optimistic that you know, we have hope that we didn't have, you know, 4 months ago and stuff like that. And so it's been amazing. And as someone who was tested positive, I think that you know, I'm very optimistic and, you know, trying to wait to figure out when I can get the vaccine also. I don't even know if we're qualified and stuff like that. But, you know, this is a good way to end our conversation. You know, 2020 was just such a traumatic year for our industry. Chairman Stevens, welcome. You know, and so, you know, to have it personally, and by the way, I had a family member pass away over the weekend. My father's sister passed away with COVID-related illness, and so it's very personal for us. But you know, I think a lot of us are looking now at the vaccine. It sounds like it's coming at us at a faster rate. We're looking at, some of the countries in Europe, Israel, for example, which isn't a great example of an amazing rollout and what can be accomplished. And so I think, like anything, America, sometimes we can be a little slow starters, but once we start winding up and getting things done, we get the job done. That's the American way. Chairman, what are you hearing? What is your reservation? Is your casino open right now?
Yeah, I've been taking money over there regular. My wife wins, I lose. That's been kind of the trend. But I'm proud of the casino industry because we're still in a tough situation in the world today, and our industry has had to fight through. And I haven't really seen. I can't say in Bill's world because Bill's part of our world too. But in the big city, in the Las Vegas, Atlantic City, Biloxi, and all those places where they have gaming, I can't speak to them. But as far as Indian country goes, I can, by word of mouth and by actual witness, I've been able to see how hard our industry has worked to create a safe environment for folks to spend their recreational dollars. The plexiglass and every place you go, you can wash your hands. And if someone pulls that mask down below their nose, we have nice, polite security folks and professional hostesses that, say, it's just part of the rules. I've seen our gaming commissioners, our gaming administrators. I've seen our top administrator. The first day our casino reopened, our top administrator, longtime GM, Luis Cornelius, was right at the front line, welcoming people and helping people to make sure we maintain that type of security and safety. So I'm proud of our industry, and at the same time, we still have a ways to go. But before I go any further, I wanted to just to mention today is the birthday of the late Rick Hill.
Oh,
yeah. So I wanted to just to mention that. I won't get into too much detail, but if you could see him, he's right over my shoulder like he always is. He's right there. And so every place I go and everything I do, and throughout this whole thing, that's what I've been saying to myself. What would Rick do? Try to maintain that. Rick wasn't the kind of guy that reacted too fast, and he always thought things through. And he was careful and calculated and did everything he could to help not just his friends and his family, but the community as a whole and Indian country as a whole. So I wanted to just bring that up. And I remember Bill, when he passed, and we saw each other in London at ice gaming. That's the first thing you said to me is you expressed your condolences. And he would have really liked you, Bill. He's this kind of guy that would have thrived with the professional and personal friendship with you, Bill. And for you to mention that, and then as I was mentioning that, or you were mentioning that to me, I handed you this obituary for Rick Hill, and it says, "Give everything you have to the widening circle of family, to the widening circle of Oneida, to the widening circle of Indian country. Sit inside each warrior word until you know and see every which way to peace. Laugh with everything all at once, with everyone all at once. As you speak the stars, you will be carried. As you speak to the stars, you will be carried by the water birds, the people of the sun." And this is Rick's obituary. And I don't have time to be sad anymore, and as much it's still emotional, but I don't have time to be sad. I have work to do, and Rick is one of the teachers. My father and his father were our teachers, and it goes on and on. The late Purcell Paulus, again, the list goes so far down the line, but I will tell you, everyone on that list knows that the women of our world in Indian country, in Oneida and Ungwe and Iroquois Confederacy, they're the real leaders. So right now, we just, I pray for them first and foremost, our elders in our community. I just pray for them within. I just wanted to bring that up as we start. And I wanted to thank Bill for his leadership. I remember last spring, we were blowing the leaves around in the yard, and I bought my wife this big high-tech backpack that could, blow the neighbors and the neighbors over there at the same time, and everybody liked it. It's a strategy. If you buy your wife the best, then you don't have to do it. So Or if you get confused, that's another one. I'll tell you guys about that one later. But the neighbors were loving it, and we were sharing it with the neighbors and everything. And then Bill called, and I was looking right down my cul-de-sac and telling him about all us folks were African American, Native, and Caucasian, and we're just all helping each other, trying to figure out what's our next move. And we're still at that point, but we're all in this together, and it's really a time where we really got to be strong. So I wanted to thank Bill, and if I could, Victor. I mean, Victor's kind of my personal counselor, so been talking to Victor for like 20 years, so we talk all the time. But Jason Giles, our executive director, he's really been the control station, and from his house, and whenever we get into the office in DC, he'll tell you more about that. But he's been able to manage a lot of these phone calls, a lot of these energies, and all of our team, our lobby team in DC, and our folks, our sister organizations, it's all coming through Washington, DC, and we're all working hard together. But, this whole communication thing and working remotely, these are all a challenge. When Jason first said we're going to work remotely, I said, what are you talking about? Everybody's going home. And they're not going home without personal or vacation time, and I had no idea what remote meant, and I didn't know what it was going to be. It was just starting, and I apologize to all my staff for being so hard-nosed, but it wasn't that way. Jason knew what we were doing, and we went into this atmosphere that technically we're still in. But again, we have to hold strong, and we can't be impatient. We can't jump the gun here. We have to be safe and be careful. So that's my long-winded hello and good morning to just a bunch of thank yous to you guys for your leadership. Thank you.
I want to go back there for a second. One of the things that you mentioned that doesn't get a lot of play, and Jason can back me up on this, was, during the whole CARES Act thing in the very beginning, and the way the industry was being shut out, and it took a while for Congress to really understand the ramifications, how many people were employed. And I know personally for me, and I know from Chairman and Jason, Bill, that, we really appreciated the help that the AGA gave Indian Country and gave NIGA, because it was really important. And it shows how far that we have come, and more importantly, how interconnected we are. You know what I mean? It's like, I've always said that, in tribal gaming, when it's done properly, you can't tell where the reservation ends and the community begins. And I've said this before, and this is kind of a case too. When both of our industries are working together, we're just so much more powerful together. And I know Jason, you can talk to this issue better than I can, but that was really one of the big moments for us, wasn't it?
Yeah. And well, go ahead, weigh in, Bill. Yeah, it was. And, I had direct communication with Bill during that time. And I think Bill will back this up. It's more recognition of, gaming is entertainment now. And we're in the entertainment business. And you shouldn't, all these barriers that were there that treated gambling different in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, a lot of those are still in the books on regulations, and those barriers should be brought down, and we still have a lot of work to do on that front. I think Bill would agree. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. First up, I'd just like to both thank Chairman Stevens and you, Jason, for the great partnership that we've had since. I think about, I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary as CEO here. And the first year was pretty easy, sports
first
betting,
day, your first day, man. What about your first day?
Go to London and, go speak at all these things. And, year 2 is try and keep the industry from going out of industry. And it was really a remarkable dynamic for 996 casinos, commercial and tribal, to be all shut down for extended periods of time. And then realize that, and not something that I didn't know coming into the job, that traditionally Congress had discriminated against our industry repeatedly on each time there'd been relief bills, whether it was Katrina or post 9/11 or Superstorm Sandy or the Great Recession bailouts and stimulus packages. Every single one of them specifically discriminated against our industry because of, I think, the outdated stereotypes that Jason alluded to. And, I think that, for all the things we had to endure, one of the most important and lasting legacies of that very difficult and trying time was two things. Number one, we have an incredible story to tell about what we mean in the communities in which we operate. It's jobs, it's transfer payments, it's taxes paid, it's small businesses supported, and careers created in oftentimes disadvantaged places in these communities in which we operate. And then two, we've been able to cross over from the sin industry, as Jason alluded to, kind of the old thinking of what our industry is, to what our industry is now, which is an integrated component of the communities in which we operate. And I think that it was because we were able to talk with one voice, talk with purpose and priority, and tribal and commercial alike, operators and manufacturers. We were all able to, drive the same message home. And that's really why we were successful. And as Jason said, we still have a ways to go because there's regs on the books that kind of date from those times when people thought differently of our industry. But we have come a long way. And I don't think we're ever going back to a place where we have to justify our existence, whether it be tribal or commercial.
Yeah, it's as someone who's been in the industry now for over 20 years, it's been amazing to watch the industry come in from the cold, now to be, especially look at this last election cycle, all the referendums and all the gaming ones that won. You can see right now in Virginia, they're just like giddy over the fact that they're getting these casinos put in and there's jobs being created in places where there weren't living wages before. And, that's always been the promise of gaming, is it does reach out and does employ people in the lower socioeconomic, and it creates these amazing careers, and that's one of the things that I've always loved when I proselytize about the gaming industry, is how these careers that it creates. And, with the pandemic though, we can't say that it's behind us, because it isn't behind us. It's still squarely in our front window. But, we've seen a lot of change in the last year, and one of them being sports betting, obviously, and the promise of what that's bringing to the industry. I believe yesterday they started taking bets in, was it Michigan? Who started on Tuesday? No, I know what it is. All the Pennsylvania casinos were opening back up yesterday. So those guys are coming back online and stuff like that. In Michigan now, they're talking about that they could be open by the Super Bowl, to be able to do sports betting and stuff like that. So, the promise of sports betting has just really been amazing, how it's gone from, being on the outside to now being, it's firmly Main Street now, isn't it?
Yeah, no question about it. And I think that it's in a way, it's an extension of the mainstreaming of the gaming industry, whether it is, us in the communities in which we operate, or the real recognition by political leaders in these states that Americans have bet on sports as long as there have been sports to bet on. And the question is whether they were betting on them with their local bookies or on offshore online sites. And that if that was going to take place, it's part of the reason that we said that we pushed to the Supreme Court to have them overturn PASPA, in order to open this up to people that are betting on sports or were betting on sports in May of 2018, albeit almost all illegally with the exception of Nevada. And now we've created an opportunity in many states across this country to allow people to do what they were doing anyway, bet on sports, but bet on sports in a safe and legal way.
Yeah, that's one thing about the pandemic that we've been talking about many times, is how it has really sped up the normalization of gambling. Is now it's just as American as apple pie, but it's always been there, as we all know. It's just now it's out of the shadows. It's taxable. The revenue that it's generating, the careers, it's just amazing. You know, you mentioned PASPA, but you know, now that we have a new Congress, obviously last night in Georgia, that was pretty exciting. Everybody's looking today, depending on where you're at, but I think we're definitely looking at a Congress that I hope will be more understanding the gaming and stuff. And but you know, one of the things that we were talking about a while ago was about the Wire Act. Can you fill us in a little bit about what you guys have been doing with the Wire Act?
Well, certainly, you know, the Wire Act is a relic of the time in which organized crime operated sports books illegally all over the country. And the Wire Act was a federal piece of legislation, statute, in order to enable federal prosecutors to go and prosecute organized crime figures who were running sports books across state lines and using the then telephone wires to do that. And so we've now moved a long way from there, and we've had two different reinterpretations of the Wire Act, one in 2011 and then one in 2018. And the most recent enactment of the Wire Act, you know, was more restrictive, but it's in courts right now, and the question is, I think there was a view that when the reinterpretation under the Trump administration would curtail sports betting, and because the utilization of the Wire Act, even as it related to, you know, electrons bouncing across state lines, the reality was it didn't. And the state legislature said, okay, so as I read this, I can go and pass this piece of sports betting legislation, and as long as the server is in the state, as long as the bettor is in the state, and we use geofencing for that purpose, and the transaction stays in the state, it will fall within the contours of the reinterpretation. Now, the administration has taken this to court. It's in appeals today. I believe that, you know, from my understanding of the incoming administration, and we did just get word, you know, a little while ago that you know, President-elect Biden is going to nominate Merrick Garland to be his Attorney General.
I saw that.
I don't know what Judge Garland's view on the Wire Act is. But I believe, and I think we will certainly be able to, through the confirmation hearing process, discover that to get a better understanding. But remembering that during the Obama-Biden years, the Wire Act was reinterpreted in a more broader sense. I think that where we look, I see maybe we will have to continue the court case as it moves its way through the Federal Court of Appeals, or maybe the federal government decides no longer to pursue the case and or issues specific and different guidance to revert to the old interpretation of the Wire Act, which, you know, under either of those scenarios, I think, you know, kind of continues to open up the opportunities for sports betting across the country.
Jason, you know, I think in Indian country, there's a lot of different perspectives on that, I think. But one of the things I think is really important is that you see and you hear the language of Indian country changing, and, you know, and the tribes understanding the importance of sports betting. And, you know, I think people like Brian Newland, and, you know, we just had Chairman Rodney Butler with us right before the holidays talking about the importance of sports betting and mobile too. So it seems like, you know, I think Indian country is a little behind the ball on this, but I think I think it's catching up. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, and to the extent we're behind the ball, it's only because, you know, we have tribal state compacts and we have IGRA that we have to comply with in Indian country. And actually, I think those are good guardrails, you know, so that we don't get too far out in front of ourselves. Unfortunately, you know, it results in situations like in Michigan where they just decided to become corporate entities under state law rather than undoing a tribal state compact and going through a arduous renegotiation. So, but on the whole, I think Indian country is set up really well. And really what Bill was alluding to, the Wire Act, but also there's so many laws. We would just take a new Congress and a new administration, if they can just update all our technology laws, that's going to help everybody out. And that's going to help Indian country out. And, you know, I think there's an opportunity there. Bill mentioned some of the hearings that are going to come up with the Georgia Senate races. Look to be, you know, Democrats are going to have control of the Senate. So the confirmation process will go a little smoother for Biden's appointees. But that gives us a little more time to vet them out and ask some tough questions about where they stand on a lot of these technological issues. Because really, I think as we look to the future, sports betting, as we know, is a low margin game, and it will soon be everywhere. I know, Bill, if you drive by the Wizard Stadium, I've only been by there 3 times since football started. Each time I went by, granted it was on a Thursday or Friday, the line was out the door. Yeah. So, and I was actually going to put some bets in one time, and I was like, I don't want COVID standing in line to put a bet on my Steelers and bet against Ernie Packers, but
Jason, you know, time and technology waits for no man. You know what I mean?
And that's this. Congress has to do their job and update these laws, and I think that's something we're really going to focus on as soon as we come out of this pandemic.
Well, you know, this makes a really good segue, at least for us. You know, we're all very optimistic in Indian country having Deb Haaland as the Secretary of Interior. As you know, Bill, she does have a background in tribal gaming. She was involved in New Mexico. So she has firsthand knowledge, the importance of tribal gaming and the effect that it has on the tribes. And so, you know, and I think with President-elect Biden and this new Congress, and I mean, there's just a lot of reasons to be optimistic, and that we didn't have before. You know, I think the whole thing with Georgia today, I think, you know, regardless whether you're left or right, it's really about doing business. And I think that's the way Indian country is more about, is like, how are we going to be able to do business? Is this administration listening to us, and can we get our ideas across? And I think right now they're feeling very optimistic with President-elect. I think we all as an industry should feel optimistic about it. Like you said, that recent interpretation of the Wire Act was kind of shocking when it came out. It felt like somebody, oh yeah, there was a whole bunch of things involved in that. Now I remember. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. But you know, I think with this new Congress coming down, and if Asaf's lead holds after all these military ballots come in and stuff like that, I think this is a great opportunity for the industry again. I think we've seen that again. I'll say the promise of sports betting is bringing a lot of opportunity, and I think one of the big things that have happened in the last month was the fact that the tribes in California have submitted 1.4 million signatures to get this constitutional change in California for sports betting. So that has to still work its way out. It's going to give us all of 2021 to deal with. That's going to be in 2022, but it's something to be excited about. I think how that's going to play out, there's still a lot of things that need to happen, but it's exciting. You know what I mean? It's going to be very exciting. Especially so, you know, I think one of the real big issues here has been now is about the recovery. I think 2021 really, you know, 2020 was a punch in the gut, and 2021 now we have Congress we can be optimistic about. I think being able to have a pro-business administration in Congress would be very important. I think that's our #1 wish list. But you know, how do you think the recovery is going to happen, Bill? And Chairman Ernest Stevens, you can jump in also. But how do you see this happening? And obviously, this is just speculation, and you know, but your opinion is still very important.
Yeah, you know, it is. It's an important era for us right now, and we really have to be able to try to focus on going forward. You know, when you have, you know, billions of dollars that have been lost, it's devastating. It's the whole world has changed in front of us, and you know, you got people who either are trying to find their way back to work, and a whole bunch of people that didn't find a way back to work. You have people throughout this whole country that put 10, 20, 30 years in a job and they don't have it anymore.
Yeah, it's so
That's a
scary.
challenge. And so I think that we really, rather than focus so much on the devastation of our losses, that we focus on how we can, the strength of our rebuild, the strength of us working together and trying to create the new normal, a better tomorrow, and get on our feet. And again, if I sound like a broken record, I'm sorry, but we're not going to do that until we take this thing seriously. And no, it's a smaller number in more recent times, but because we've had to suffer through so much loss in our families, but still people disregard the mask and the safety and the distance and the crowd gatherings. We really, really have to take that serious. If we do, we get back to where we need to get to. And I think that the only way we're going to do that is from our hearts, our industry, our work ethic to get us there, to be able to walk the talk and teach our world that we're not going to get back to normal. We're going to create a new normal, and that has to have safety first. And I think, and clearly, we need a more coronavirus funded relief through the whole world. I mean, and especially in America here, and right for the needy people, the poor folks in our country. They need help, and we got to help them. And Indian country as a whole, as a professional Indian gaming industry, needs support. Tribal government needs support of this country right now, and we will continue to support this country.
Chairman, you bring up a really good point. Bill, do you is there going to be another opportunity for CARES Act? Is there going to be another opportunity Congress? They're going to look at, I just saw an article this morning there, and the restaurant industry is saying, listen, we'll shut down, but you got to help us. You know what I mean? We need help. So is Congress going to hear these pleas from the industries across the United States?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that I just first echo the chairman's comments around. We have to be smart. We're not going to be able to get to the new normal or the better normal until we take seriously really the next 2, 3, 4 months and wear the masks and do social distancing and do all those important things as we're beginning to, put our industry back into where it was pre-pandemic, which I actually believe that, if you think about the numbers, the commercial numbers and the tribal numbers in February of 2020, they were the best numbers that we've ever had as an industry across this country. More jobs, more taxes paid, more tribal payments made, and the industry had never been healthier. And so we've taken this, huge punch, and it's knocked us down. But I'll take some of the chairman's boxing analogies here and say, look, don't. We might have taken an 8 count, but we're not staying down.
Oh, he did it. He mentions boxing.
So anyway, look, I think about what we need and what we've accomplished. But I think it is important to kind of remember, first of all, like, for the first time in the history of our industry, we are treated like restaurants. We are treated like hotels. We are treated like retail businesses. We are treated like entertainment. And that is a monumental shift for the Congress and for many of these state legislatures that have helped too. There's no doubt, Victor, and you just mentioned it, how much devastation, Chairman too, how much devastation has been on, particularly these family-owned, businesses that, these people, they're not making a ton of money, but this is their heritage. Maybe they started this restaurant or hotel or something, and it's been in their family, and they're just barely hanging on. And the CARES Act is allowing them to hang on. The PPP Small Business Loan Program is helping them hang on. And so we need to continue to push for more of that. And obviously continue to have our industry be eligible for those things. But then we've got to, I think, as we're going to see, local, tribal, and commercial properties that are more regional. We've already been seeing kind of, they've been ticking up from a business perspective. Atlantic City, Las Vegas, Macau, some of these places that are true destinations, you've got to do a couple of really important things. One, you've got to make it safe to fly. Two, you've got to make the people feel comfortable that when they get there, the environment is safe for them. And then we've got to get business travelers to be comfortable with, having conferences and, and trade shows and conventions. And all of those things, I think, will and should include some stimulative work by the Congress and the new administration. And I think that those are things that are, things that we will, collectively, AGA and NIGA working arm in arm, working together to make sure that we are able to get the stimulative benefit to, one, keeping some of these doors open of these businesses, and then two, creating some incentives to get people back on the road, to get people to, go and visit some of these great properties that we have all across the country.
Yeah, and if you read the local papers like in Virginia and Bristol and stuff like that, all these articles are just coming out, and these people are just like so excited that these casinos are coming in their community and bringing these jobs, and they just can't wait. And if you look on it, there was a Hard Rock, you got the Pamunkeys, you've got all these other commercial and tribal enterprises all bringing this promise of gaming, and to me it's really wonderful to see what it does to the communities, and these are the things that the people are waiting for. And those of us who have been involved in gaming for a while now, we know how important gaming is, and so it's really wonderful to see the rest of the industry catching on, to see how important they can be to the communities. The same thing that the tribes are finding out, the people of Virginia are finding out now, just how important gaming is going to be to them. But I think, to your point, we still have a ways to go. I think a lot of it has to do with testing. A lot of it has to do with the vaccination. People, we're coming out of an era of, the misinformation, and everyone has a voice, and everyone has a bullhorn, and everybody has a soapbox, and everybody's screaming and yelling different things. So I think as the din starts to die down, I think everybody is just really wants to get back to normal. And, that pathway is through vaccinations and through testing. So, I know in our industry, especially in Indian country, it's been very, very important with our elders and our culture and our history that the vaccinations are going to our elders and people who are very vulnerable. And, it's brought I think it's bringing some optimism, which is very needed in new 2021. One of the other things that, before I let you go, Bill, one of the things that I noticed that the AGA was talking about, and the pandemic has pushed to the front this whole touchless technology and what that brings. And you touched about it very briefly in one of the others, but could we talk about this a little more before we wrap up, about touchless and why you guys have been such a big advocate?
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about, something that, I think when I was a candidate for this job, I mentioned it a number of times, and I said, look, I don't understand, as this industry continues to want to move away from the colorful past of money laundering and organized crime, that we as an industry aren't stronger advocates to move towards technology and touchless payments or digital payments. And so, and when I got the job, I recognized that it was not as simple as just saying, why should we be the last industry, along with flea markets and garage sales, that is principally cash oriented business. And, and the obstacles were, and in some cases continue to be many. In some places it's regulatory, in some cases it's issuing banks and the cards and debit cards and the networks, and in some cases it's the operators who have enjoyed the fees that they get from ATM machines that are on the floors of the casinos. And so there are many different things that were playing, that were a resistant to modernizing payments. And I think that what the pandemic did, because of CDC guidance around touching of cash and the move towards not touching or trying to not touch as many things as you can, it really accelerated something that I thought was really important for the industry. And quite frankly, in tribal country, in Indian country, there have been great leaders in this space, probably more so than in the commercial space. And these guys have been really, pilots, and they have been the laboratories experimenting with how should we do this, and how can we do this where, I've had many conversations with, the IRS, FinCEN, FBI, and every one of them say, wow, we'd much rather see digital transactions because it's a lot easier to track money that way than it is somebody bringing in, a bag of money, or, a shoebox full. So what's happened is the pandemic has accelerated something that I think was overdue. And I think that, Indian country's leading in this space. And I think that we've got some good commercial operators now and some really good technology partners that have understood there was always a market here, but that it was a market that needed to be, kind of put some accelerant on. And I think that the pandemic has been that accelerant that is really going to help modernize the industry to really good effect across the board.
Yesterday IGT announced that they just applied for a patent for a Bitcoin slot machine. So they haven't put it in anywhere, but that was the big announcement yesterday, and I thought that was really interesting. Now, I think Ernest Stevens was the only place I remember that had a Bitcoin ATM in his lobby. I don't know if it's still there. That was a couple of years ago, but I got a feeling it probably still is. But we still have a ways to go. But I think, like I said, the pandemic has really exacerbated the move towards touchless and stuff like that. And the bottom line is that it is going to not only just for money laundering and FinCEN stuff, but for health reasons. And the days of those filthy buckets of coins, and that was before your time, man. But let me tell you, do you remember, right, Ernie? Those big.
It's not before my time. Before
you worked in a cash industry too. You remember,
But the other thing that it is really good is, we have to recognize what about our customers, right? We are a consumer-facing industry, and so if we are, if someone goes to Starbucks and they tap their card, or they go to a restaurant or a hotel or an entertainment venue and they tap their card, or they have some digital form of payment, and then they go walk onto a casino floor and that's rejected, that is not the way to attract the next generation of people that we should be looking to try and enhance and strengthen our industry for generations.
Well, and obviously, if the pandemic really has normalized it to the sense that now if you go to a store and you pull out cash, people are looking at you like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And I even feel guilty reaching in my wallet for cash if I go to a drive-thru or stuff like that. So it's all, the card and stuff. So I think, it's just a matter of time now. I think this normalization has really moved our industry to that direction. And I think there's been a lot of negatives about 2020, but I think some of the positives coming in 2021 that we're going to be carrying, I think, are very important. Chairman Stevens, go ahead, Chairman Stevens. I was going to ask you.
Love to focus on some of the great things, and we've been able to be closer as family, and sometimes that's not always so good. My wife has me home for way too long than she used to. She liked for me to start at least flying back to DC once in a while. We did, Ricky, my assistant, and we did drive back to DC right in the middle of all this. And then we did move around quite a bit during the Get Out and Vote initiative that we worked on with the tribes in our surrounding states. But I really think that we really have to continue to pursue the one thing that we never lost, good or bad, is our work ethic. And I think that's the key that's going to get us through this thing. Before, I think Bill mentioned that last February, we were Indian tribes are the 11th highest employer in this whole country, up there with Walmart and Target and all this, Amazon and all these folks. So we need to focus on getting back there. We can't do that. Nobody can do that in this country without more support, coronavirus relief support. So again, I think that the other part about it is, and again, I hate to just jump around from the bright spot to, but you see businesses closing, big businesses, small business, and Bill talked about that. One of the things that we have to come out of this thing and understand the seriousness is something that our elders, that my father's told me time and time again, and is that we have to create business, we have to promote business, and we have to create opportunities for business for our tribal members and our tribal enterprise with and beyond gaming. And I think those are key things. And the only other thing I wanted to say just real quickly is that we have to find in this new election cycle, we have to find a way to create peace in our hearts. And we don't want to waste our time on the partisanship and being angry. And you can see right what's going on right down the street from our office in DC. We don't want to take an opinion other than to I want to be able to be brave enough to say create peace and in our hearts and find a way to take the high road and promote this and steer away from partisan comments and steer towards proactive comments and working together. And that's not always going to be how we want it or how we expect it to be, but in order to find peace and create peace and promote a healthy environment, we're going to have to take it to another level, and we're going to have to be able to work through where we agree or disagree, work through both sides of the aisle. And I think those are the kind of things that is going to help to hold us together. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, we talk about Deborah Holland, that potential or that designation is historic, but it's not just historic because of what it is. It's historic because Deborah Holland is a stateswoman, is a leader. She's dynamic, yet she's fair, and she's serious, and she's a worker. Those are the kind of things that we need to do to get this country on its feet, and to have a Native American woman leader like that to help this country move forward. It's truly, truly amazing. So, I just wanted to say that because I think it's important for us to understand how we have to move forward, and we have to do that in a good way. And, one of the things, like I said, there's a lot of good things that have happened and in this time of struggle. But the other thing is with the Washington football team. We took and I worked when we were traveling around doing our get out and vote. We didn't promote any candidates, but we promoted a native vote. We stopped at Netawaseppi Huron Band of Potawatomi, and they talked about not so much taking a position or being angry about the Washington football team or local mascot teams, but educating America about the diplomacy, the history, and the strength of what Indian country has done from day one in this country. And now more than ever, just like we did back then in taking care of settlers and coming to our lands, now more than ever, we got to take care of one another, and we have to open our arms and help one another. This is the key point, and that's why I'm happy to be on this team, on this call today. And again, I talked to Bill and I talked to you a little bit, Victor, but again, Jason's a little quiet on the call today. He's the technical guy, but I'll tell you, he has not been quiet throughout this whole thing.
He's a hard worker.
Yeah, and he's an offensive lineman, I think, at West Point. But in this situation, for us, for Indian country, for the world as a whole, he's been the quarterback. So, Jason, do you want to anything you want to add?
I just want to spike the ball, Jason.
No, we had, I'm glad, we had the chairman and president of major organizations on today. So folks want to hear from you guys. But, one of the things, Bill, just looking down the future again, once we get past the pandemic, the mutual challenge confronting the gambling industry, again, is going to be how do we work with a Congress and a new administration on straightening out and catching up the laws where the casino industry, entertainment industry has far outrun what's feasible at this point, to the point where, if you're talking about a Bitcoin slot machine, or if you're even just talking about cryptocurrency at some point being allowed into the casinos, those are such esoteric notions right now, but yet it's out there. And when we look at a younger generation of gamblers, I think that's where they're going to be going and coalescing around, and not to mention just everything on the phone and things of that nature. So it's a daunting proposition. Obviously, we've got to get through this pandemic, but what are you guys planning for in the near future to start addressing some of those?
Well, it's a great thing that, for us to, continue. I think that what we were able to accomplish last year is because we kind of, whether it was a virtual table or, on a call, we all kind of outlined what our priorities were, and then kind of said, all right, so maybe we can't get all of these right now, but, I think that it was Rahm Emanuel who famously said, never let a crisis go to waste. And so I think that, number one, we used this crisis to advance payments, and I think we have done that significantly. We've used this crisis to legitimize ourselves in the eyes of federal lawmakers, and that's never going to go away as long as we collectively continue to press the benefits of our industry. And then it's, all right, what's the next wave of these things? I think that, in talking about, slots in particular, we've got this slot tax threshold, for reporting requirements that is, it's 30 some years old. And so, I took a number of people into, see, the Treasury Secretary, about, in my first year, and talked to people, and they said, well, look, we just passed this giant tax bill. And so, this $1,250 slot threshold tax, we have 5 years of guidance that we need to write on the tax bill. So we'll come back to that when it's more important. I think one of the things we were able to do, omnibus that we just were able to pass, is force language in there to have Treasury report back the feasibility within 90 days to the Congress about changing that rule, which, for people that are running, casinos, it is a labor intensive, probably not as labor intensive as, filling up slot machines with a bunch of quarters, or probably much less taxing on your back also, but it is still a issue that, requires machines to be taken out of service and then put back in. And so I think that we need to press and continue to identify those different issues that are kind of antiquated. I think we stumbled across it after we got relief in the CARES Act, and then the SBA decided, hey, well, we have this old guidance that says that if you make more than a third of your money from legal gambling, that you're not eligible for a 7A loans. And we said, well, wait a minute, that's not what this new statute said, but we still had to kind of bust down the doors over at the SBA to get them to undo their old set. And I think that Jason raises a really important point, and that is for us to continue to root those things out, to identify those areas that, whether it's in the bureaucracy of the government, that we need to kind of make sure that they understand that this is a modern entertainment industry that's very mainstream, and that the old antiquated views, sometimes in statute, sometimes in regulation, need to be adjusted for the modern gaming industry.
Thank you, Bill and Jason and your teams. And I can't go down the list of the teams that you guys have quarterbacked through this, but it's you guys that work so hard in helping us have a strong voice in Washington, and to do this in these new tools and this modern technology and the new normal has not been easy. And we've done it. We've done it because of you guys' hard work. And I appreciate it. You too, Victor, getting this information out to the world, not just Indian country, is very, very important. To thank all of you.
Well, and you know what, I think with that, I think we can wrap up. And I think the most important thing to take away from this is the fact that we will be working together, and we have worked together. And I think as an industry, we're better for it. And Bill, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you spending some time with us. Chairman Stevens, I hope everyone in your family is okay in Wisconsin. And we were commenting on that football trophy. And by the way, Bill, I think I can name every single album behind you on your wall. That will be our next interview. We'll go over your wall.
Well, I change them up every once in a while, so you know.
Yeah. Well, you guess my guitars, I'll guess your records. Okay, we could do that.
Okay, there you go.
All right. So Jason, again, another very informative show. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Bill, thank you. Chairman Stevens, and more importantly, thank you to all the viewers. And we appreciate you, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much.
Stay safe and be strong, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.